And here we've got, as you can see, they didn't do too much. There's a NASCAR down here, which is a typical sprint thing. And they haven't really added too much stuff, which isn't bad at all. Polaris Office, Office editing, well actually reading suite. I installed Quadrant, I installed Quick. Actually no, Quick was pre-installed by Sprint. Speed Test I installed, Skype I installed. Sprint Hotspot, which is just basically the hotspot feature. Sprint Zone, so yeah, there's those Sprint apps down here. Sprint Mobile, Sprint Radio, Sprint TV, and Movies. So basically, they didn't do too bad of a job with crapware, thankfully, on this phone. Now, as far as the rest of the software goes, one thing that's worth mentioning is obviously the camera software. I briefly showed you earlier, but let me show you again. So we're going to start off in 2D here, and I can switch at any time to 3D. So this is 3D now. Of course, it's going to look really strange on a 2D camera, as you can see. As I go side to side, it's a little different. So one of the things about the camera is that there's a bunch of limitations imposed by the choice of A, a 5 megapixel sensor, and B, this 3D design. First of all, so when you capture in 2D, 5 megapixels is what you get, and when you switch to video, actually I'm switching to the front cam, but if you switch to video, you'll notice that unlike what we hoped and we were told originally at CTIA, the maximum video resolution is actually 720p. So that's a little disappointing. Now, when you record in 3D, what happens is the pictures are actually 2 megapixel widescreen. They're 1920 by 1080. And when you record video in this mode, which we're in right now, it actually records at 720p, but it squeezes the two left and right frames into a single 1280 wide screen. So basically, they're squished down to 640 by 720, which is a little unfortunate because you're kind of losing half the resolution. Other than that, the camera is kind of so-so. For 2Ds, it's using the left camera up here, and the quality is on par, maybe a little less than the quality on existing 5 megapixel shooters from HTC, which is to say kind of average. This has some issues with the optics, as I said. The sensors are good, but this glass or plastic cover here adds some halos in bright light. And also, there's some issues with exposure being kind of off in many shots, either overexposed or underexposed. Of course, this can be fixed in firmware, but the optics is certainly something you can't really do much about. And then in 3D is really at this point a gimmick. I mean, it's kind of cool. The problem is, and I'll show you here maybe by bringing up the gallery. If I bring up the gallery and I try to show people some pictures, they have a really hard time seeing the 3D effect half the time on the screen. So if I pick a 3D picture, of course you won't be able to see this, but you'll notice as I move the phone from side to side, there's these kind of sweet spots for the 3D effect. Of course, you really can't tell exactly, but you can see kind of some banding on the LCD as you go. And that is one of the things that some people seem to have a hard time with. They have a hard time positioning themselves to view the pictures, and they find it very difficult and painful almost to look at the screen until they can resolve the 3D, and they don't seem to be able to. So that combined with the quality loss, as it were, the kind of low quality from using the 3D camera is kind of really making us believe and think that this is just a gimmick at this point. It'll probably improve, but the other issue is being able to see this content. It's really hard to get this content off and see it on other devices. We were able to create some anaglyphs, which are red cyan 3D pictures and videos that you can watch on just a regular monitor, but doesn't really give you the fidelity of a real 3D monitor. And only one of the TVs that we tested was able to display all all the files properly. So you know, your mileage will vary as far as supported standards and for displaying 3D on other devices. As long as you stick to the phone, you're probably okay. So another thing I want to quickly bring up is the screen. So the screen quality is kind of an issue. It's not, of course, the resolution is great, but the viewing angles, as you can see, are pretty compromised. Compared to some of the wide VGA phones we've reviewed, like the Incredible 2, which also has an LCD, and or compared to the Galaxy S2, which is obviously a Super AMOLED Plus display. But that's one area that could be improved. Although the resolution is high, the quality of the LCD is so-so. And also it washes out in direct sunlight. So if you're trying to take pictures on a sunny day, you're not going to be able to see much of the screen. It's particularly bad in 3D mode. So anyway, that's, you know, the Evo 3D in a nutshell. You're basically looking at a Sensation with a worse camera, no ability to roam worldwide, but you get WiMAX on Sprint's network, and you get the 3D, which could be a good or bad thing. It could definitely, we feel it's kind of a gimmick. Anyway, so let me quickly do some, show you this phone side by side other phones so you get a feel for things. Quickly just want to show you the Incredible 2. And as you can see, the industrial design family here, the resemblances are pretty strong. You got the same, although this is more round, the same kind of unibody machined matte alloy bezel around the phone. And of course in the back there's some resemblance with the soft touch and the round edges. And of course, well, you know, thickness, they're both about the same. Now, one well-known phone that everybody kind of knows and has seen is the iPhone 4. So this is what the iPhone 4 looks like next to the Evo 3D. And notice the notification LED is blinking now because it's embedded in the earpiece, which is kind of cool. And then from the back, and then of course thickness, you can see the iPhone is definitely thinner. Another popular phone is the Nexus S, and this is what it looks like near the Evo 3D. And of course, thickness-wise, it's about the same. The Nexus S has never been very thin. You can see my fingers behind the phones because of the curved display on the Nexus S. This is what it looks like from the back. And then let's pick some of the heavyweights, like the Sensation. So this is the same display, except that the Evo 3D's display can handle 3D, stereoscopic view. So just to give you a feel, see the viewing angle issue is there on both. So same resolution, same CPU, essentially the same devices, one GSM, one WiMAX, but the difference is the cameras versus 3D versus no 3D, and 5 megapixel versus 8. And as you can see, it's almost impossible to touch the lens. It's recessed well enough here, and designed such that you can't screw up. Whereas here, you're going to put your finger on it every time you pull it out of your pocket. And then, let's see, Galaxy S2. So here's what I was saying about the Super AMOLED. You can see the difference. Of course, this is wide VGA, so the resolution win goes to the Evo 3D, but look at the difference in colors and viewing angles. I mean, it just dimmed here, but look at that. It's just insane. And of course the thickness as well. So this is the back, and then the thickness, as you can see, thinnest phone on the planet here, the Galaxy S2. There you go. And then just for completion, because it's got the best currently QHD display that we've come across, here's the Droid X2. So the Droid X2, as you can see, look at the viewing angles on this. Look at the difference. Both are QHD, both are LCDs, yet the Droid X2 is just a fantastic display in comparison. So this is what they look like from the front, and then from the back, and of course thickness. You know, the Droid X2 chassis was pretty slim when it came out, but in this day and age it's not really quite as thin anymore. So anyway, that is the Evo 3D for Sprint. and made by HTC. Again, it's a QHD display, 1.2 gigahertz dual-core Snapdragon processor, 1 gig of RAM, really, really high performance, but slightly compromised because of the 3D feature, which kind of made the cameras not nearly as good as